Hey, Michael Church, Crawl Space Ninja. I am continuing our crawl space problem series. This is video number 3. So we're going to cover quite a bit about insulation in this video. So let's go ahead and get started. Glad you all are watching. I hope you found this series to be pretty informative. I hope you're liking and subscribing, of course, and ringing that notifications bell. And please give us some feedback on how we can make these videos better. I'm not the greatest at production, obviously. I normally just turn on the camera and start talking. I don't do a lot of crazy animations and things like that. I'm just trying to get some good information out to you all, and you can even listen to this. I believe YouTube has the ability to speed up the video. Since they can be a little long, you can make it 1.2 or even 2 times faster if you want to hear me with a high-pitched voice. But let's go ahead and get started in crawl space insulation and air sealing. So what we're going to learn here is crawl spaces tend to be insulated incorrectly, either under insulated or not insulated at all. And you know, normally crawl spaces have a lot of fiberglass in them, and they typically are not air sealed. Air sealing should be a part of every insulation strategy, okay? So don't just go down there and insulate the crawl space. Insulate and air seal. R values should be reviewed and will vary region to region. If you live in Boston, for example, your R values are going to be different than Florida. And then, of course, you can do what's called testing your home. I'm not going to get into a lot of this, but one of the things that you can do is what's called a blower door test. If you are concerned about losing a lot of air, blower door testing is a great way to check the entire home for air leaks. And it's not common practice in our area for people to do blower door testing, but in some of the areas, especially those of you that may have great tax credits for insulating your home properly, there's a lot of companies, a lot of energy auditors and things like that that can do blower door testing. So I encourage you. Typically it's less than $500 to do that with a report, and then they go through and identify areas that are leaking. So again, air sealing is different from insulating according to what I'm going to share with you in this video, but it's just as important, okay? So if you get a chance, go ahead and have someone do a blower door test for you, and they can identify some problems. Also, make sure you check out the previous 2 lessons. Crawl space problem number 1 was humidity. And then crawl space problem number 2 is standing water. And then of course, this is crawl space problem number 3. I'm going to put a link to both of these videos down below. Fiberglass subfloor insulation in our area is probably the most type of insulation that we find in crawl spaces due to how they constructed crawl spaces over the years. Typically they're vented crawl spaces, and when you're venting a crawl space, your real only option is to insulate the subfloor. So fiberglass is great for nesting materials. I've seen many snakes and rodents and bugs nesting in fiberglass. Possums, I've encountered a mama possum up in a fiberglass nesting. That was interesting. Not aggressive by any means. It was just kind of an interesting interaction I had with that mama possum. Also, fiberglass traps moisture and humidity. It hides a lot of foundation problems as well, as I mentioned in video number 2, and fiberglass hides and promotes mold. So one of the things I want you to take a look at right here, this was a house that I did, the homeowner right here, the homeowner was complaining about some serious odors in the house. As you can see, they had fiberglass. You can see it was still sticking to the pipe and the side of the wood here. And her bathroom was just stinking, smelled. It didn't have like a cat pee smell. It just had like a nasty smell, and it was hidden. I crawled that crawl space all over. Finally, I got underneath where the homeowner was. I asked her to kind of tap on the floor so I knew exactly where she was. I pulled the fiberglass down, and this is what I saw. I never saw a water leak or anything until I was able to remove that fiberglass. That's what I'm talking about. Subfloor insulation is great at hiding problems, and it obviously promotes moisture problems and mold growth. As you can see, there's a lot of mold on here, and this obviously is from condensation. As you can see, there's little beads of moisture all in this fiberglass. All that moisture is leaching directly into the wood, and this is wood rot fungus or wood decay fungus that has began. This crawl space, I believe we did a video about this crawl space about high humidity creating wood rot fungus. If you get a chance, look for that video on YouTube. This shows the power of humidity only, and then obviously subfloor fiberglass insulation trapping that humidity and then allowing it to leach and causing all kinds of problems. By the way, there's a great video called Winterize Your Crawl Space. If you get a chance to watch that video, just do a search for YouTube, Winterize Your Crawl Space with Crawl Space Ninja. That'd be some great information for you as well. Fiberglass can also indicate signs of moisture. Of course, the best way to know whether you have a moisture problem in your crawl space is to use a moisture meter. Okay, but this is what I call stalactiting. I kind of came up with that term many years ago. I like to go cave exploring in my younger days, and so I got to see a lot of stalactites and stalagmites. But now I'm a little bit too heavy to fit in those tight spaces. But you know, stalactiting is real. So normally this happens whenever the fiberglass gets so moist that the insulation actually begins to tear away from itself. The R value is compromised whenever you see this, as well as trapping moisture. So if you've got a R19 insulation that is doing this, obviousll your R value is decreased. And you don't always see stalactiting, like in this picture here. You may not have stalactiting right here in this picture. Okay, this is just to let you know that stalactiting is not constant. It's not something that's always going to be prevalent, but it is something that you can look out for just to make sure. So you see all these little bits of insulation falling down, look for that. It's a good indicator of a moist problem. Dripping ducts is also a good indicator. If you have ductwork going through your crawl space, you can normally shine your flashlight and you see glistening water along the bottom of the ductwork. And of course, if you get in there and you can touch the insulation and notice that it's wet with your hands. But of course, a moisture meter is always going to be your best option. I heard this for many years, mold cannot grow on insulation. Well, this is your proof, all of those that keep saying that out there. The insulation itself can grow mold. The glass part may not be able to grow mold, but obviously the paper certainly can. And here's the thing about all of the fiberglass, all right? So maybe this area up here cannot grow mold, but think about this. If dust and, you know, cricket carcasses and fecal matter from mice and different things like that get stuck in here, that can begin to grow mold. So just because you have fiberglass installed in your crawl space does not mean that it's mold resistant or will not ever grow mold. Moisture is a huge problem. I have even seen mold grow on glass, like inside a house. There was a lot of dust and different things on the glass, and we tested it, and it actually had mold growing on the glass. It wasn't the glass growing the mold, just like it's not concrete that grows mold. It's normally something on the glass or on the concrete. Normally with block walls, for example, if you paint them, they can grow mold. And obviously, you know, the paper backing here on this R19 is growing mold, and then anything trapped in the fiberglass can grow mold. So let's get into a subfloor myth, insulation myth. Fiberglass insulation can be left in place during mold treatment. That should not be the case. All right, imagine a contractor going in and seeing this mess and then saying, oh yeah, we can leave all this in place and just spray the joists right here, and all this mold's gonna die. Well, first of all, if they spray any kind of liquid in this fiberglass, it is gonna just start to fall out. It's gonna affect the R value and all that. Plus, they can't treat anything behind the fiberglass. So all they're gonna really do is be able to hit the few inches of board that is exposed. Nothing on this side is exposed. So if you're going to take care of your crawl space and address mold properly, remove the fiberglass. It hides and traps and promotes mold, as I mentioned before, and applying any kind of liquid disinfectant can damage it by weighing it down and causing it to fall and even lower the R value. So even though they may just spray this, it could get heavy enough to fall out of the subfloor. Then you've got no R value at all. But if you're gonna do it, go ahead and do it right and remove that fiberglass so that it's not an issue whenever you address the mold. That being said, I don't always recommend removing fiberglass or any type of subfloor insulation. If you don't have a moisture problem and you don't have a mold problem, you can leave the subfloor insulation in place. Okay, so if it's not wet, not moldy, no leaks, it's installed properly, you could leave it in place and not have to mess with it. Now, installed improperly, this is improper installation. Whenever the paper is facing down, this would be proper insulation with the glass facing down, okay? I get that question a lot, so I just wanted to mention that. The manufacturers of insulation recommend that the paper touch the living space, okay? So just keep that in mind. It's a good rule of thumb. But be cautious that even if you don't have a today plumbing leak, a today moisture problem, or a today rodent problem in your crawl space, those problems can occur and be hidden in the future. So that's why I'm not a big fan of subfloor insulation, whether it's spray foam, fiberglass, rock wool, whatever, because it hides a lot of problems, as I showed you in the previous slide. Anything that can trap moisture, and I'm certainly not advocating installing vapor barrier up against the subfloor either. People ask me that question all the time. You don't want anything up against that subfloor that could potentially trap moisture and cause or hide mold problems. Now I want to talk to you about foundation wall insulation. Now, here's the thing. Subfloor insulation is required if your crawl space is vented or open, okay? Foundation wall insulation is not recommended in a vented or open crawl space. You are not supposed to insulate the foundation wall until you seal the crawl space or encapsulate the crawl space. That means the vents are sealed and the air from the outside is not coming freely through the vents, okay? Now, another thing to think about, even though I'm a huge advocate of dehumidifiers in an encapsulated crawl space, the dehumidifier does not mean that the crawl space is sealed. Sealed means the vents are sealed, okay? So you can seal the crawl space, insulate the foundation wall without installing a dehumidifier. I do not recommend that unless it's just like you're in a very dry climate and you don't have any humidity at all. But even during foggy, rainy days, you're going to have some outside humidity that's going to make its way into the crawl space, which could require active dehumidification. All right, so the nice thing about wall insulation is that it creates a thermal break from the outside. So this wall, whatever it is outside, if it's negative 20 degrees outside, you've got a thermal break right here, because this block is going to be whatever temperature the outside is. It's going to transfer right into the crawl space. The other nice thing about the type of insulation that we use is that it can get wet, unlike a subfloor insulation, where once it gets wet, you're supposed to remove and replace it. It does not hide subfloor problems, as I mentioned before, and it can act as a vapor barrier. So I get that question quite a bit too. If I put foam board, for example, on the wall of the crawl space, do I need to install a vapor barrier? Technically, you may not need to install a plastic or a vapor retarder over that foam board, but I certainly would check with local codes to make sure. But it can be a vapor retarder. Now, the reason why I say it may not be able to is because most local codes require a class 1 vapor retarder, and not all foam boards and foundation wall insulations are considered class 1 vapor retarders. As a matter of fact, I think I did a video about that too, if you want to do a search for YouTube. I also get the question about, do I have to insulate the subfloor and the foundation wall? And I did a video about that I'm going to reference a little later in this video, but we have found, or at least the studies have shown, that if you are in a super cold climate, it might be advantageous to insulate both subfloor and foundation wall. But keep in mind, the subfloor still has its issues with trapping moisture and other things. So if you can steer clear of subfloor insulation just to prevent mold and moisture problems, that would be a great idea. Okay, so there are different types of foundation wall insulation. Of course, there's foam board, there's spray foam, as you can see right here. There's Insul barrier, as I have mentioned before, and I'll put a link to it down below. Insul barrier is great because it is an insulation and a vapor barrier in one. It's a one installed product. We've got it available on our DIY store. I have seen fiberglass bats put against a wall, and I've seen a sticky blown-in insulation on foundation walls as well. So all of those technically are thermal break insulations. Not all of them I would recommend in a crawl space. I certainly would not put fiberglass batting on a foundation wall, because if that foundation wall is leaking, nor would I put the blown-in if it's made. A lot of the blown-ins that I've seen on crawl space walls are cellulose, and of course that's paper. So I don't recommend that. We had some builders many years ago that used that as a form of insulation, and we removed a lot of it. So anyway, there are different types of insulation. Just make sure whatever you're using is ground contact rated, and that it can withstand moisture, because that's the beauty of foundation wall insulation, is that it does not need to be removed once it gets wet, unlike other types out there. If you have uneven block, as this wall is very uneven, or if you have any kind of stone wall or brick wall, spray foam is a great way to insulate. Okay, as you can see, this crawl space, they had a black plastic down here, and then they ran it up to the foundation wall and then spray foamed over it. So that way they've got a continuous water or moisture barrier all the way down through there. That's one way to install it. Spray foam is very difficult to get right if you've never used it before. You don't spray it like this. You spray it like this, let it rise, and then spray it again, okay? So there's some 2-component spray foams out there that you can use. Make sure you get something that's low VOC. I've heard a lot of people use some of these very cheap spray foams that give off a lot of off-gassing, and if you're sensitive to things like that, it can be a problem. The type that we use is made by ICP, and it is Green Guard rated. I think the off-gassing is only for an hour versus some of the other products that are out there. So if you're looking for some 2-component spray foams, let us know. We could probably steer you in the right direction. But I don't know every manufacturer out there, but just read the labels and find out, or ask what the off-gassing. Some of these guys off-gas for 24 to 48 hours and longer, which means that technically you're not supposed to be in the house while they cure, okay? So a foundation wall insulation myth: vapor barrier is adequate to replace insulation. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard that statement. Hey, if we encapsulate your crawl space, you don't need to insulate it. That's not true. Vapor barrier, vapor retarder, plastic is not considered insulation. It may have a tiny, tiny, tiny R value just because it's thick, but that does not replace insulating your crawl space. They do that because they want to look better on their pricing, and they don't want to have to install the insulation properly or have to deal with it. So don't let contractors tell you that an encapsulated crawl space does not require insulation. All crawl spaces, whether encapsulated or not, should be insulated and air sealed. Okay, another quick note, this is called foil. We see this a lot in older homes. They used to act like this was some kind of vapor retarder / insulation. If you see this in your subfloor, remove it. Cut it out, get rid of it, whatever you need to do. This needs to come out so that it's not trapping moisture and growing mold behind it. This is also not any form of insulation. This is something that we would see. Typically, they would put fiberglass over it. The joist would be put in place during the build, then they would put this foil over it and staple it to the top of the joist, then put the subfloor down. So a lot of times you've got to cut it out. You can't like rip it out. You just cut along the edges with a knife right through here, and then you can just take it right out. So if you see this in your crawl space, make sure to remove it. While we're making sure that we insulate the crawl space properly, you also want to insulate the rim joist. This is one of the critical air seals and thermal breaks. According to buildingscience.com, it prevents sweating during extreme temperatures. It can stop drafts up into the living space and improves comfort. I recently had a Ask a Ninja question where they asked me, do I have to insulate the rim joist, otherwise known as the band board, depending on what part of the country you're in? Do I have to insulate the rim joist if my home got brick on the outside? Okay, well, brick conducts heat and cold, and then I would assume there may be a 1/2-inch foam board between the brick and the structure of the home itself, depending on when it was built. but that still may require that rim joist insulation no matter what type of outside covering, whether it's brick or siding or whatever you have on the house. Okay, because the rim joist insulation does more than just create a thermal break, which would be the difference in temperature between this piece of wood and outside. It also creates an air seal right along here to keep air from flowing up into the living space. That's according to buildingscience.com. It will improve comfort. It will do all those things for your house. I recommend you always insulate the rim joist when possible. Use a foam board and spray foam if you can. If you cannot, then shove a piece of fiberglass in there. Even though I'm a big against fiberglass kind of guy, it would still be better to create that thermal break right in there. And a lot of codes do require rim joist and bandboard insulation, so make sure to check local code about that as well. As you can see right here, we do have rim joist insulation installed. There is a rim joist insulation myth. Fiberglass insulation in the rim joist will air seal. That is not true. Fiberglass normally is not rated as an air sealing product. The reality is air sealing the rim joist involves using spray foam and or foam board and spray foam. Okay, so you can just spray foam this. We don't normally do that. We like to use a foam board because it's a true test of the R value. If you put on the spray foam too thick or not thick enough, the R value can vary even cavity to cavity, even within the cavity. So that's why I like the foam board mixed with, as you can see right here, we've air sealed it with a little bit of spray foam. Great way to insulate your crawl space. We actually sell these pre-cut on our DIY store. If you've got a standard joist distance, you could see if they might fit for you. If not, you can just get foam board, cut it to size, put it in there, get you some one component spray foam and take care of that as well. And then of course, this is how North Carolina code requires, from what I understand, this is new, that they require foam board to be installed this way. They don't want any type of vapor barrier up here. They want the foam board to go and act as the termite gap. So that's an interesting thing that North Carolina is doing. Tennessee does not require that. So again, you got to check with local codes and see what they want. But as far as I know, there's not a code enforcement agent out there that does not want you to insulate the crawl space in some way. So don't let some contractor talk you out of insulating. Then you go to sell your house and then find out that it was a requirement. All right, so I'm going to do some proper insulation overview for you. Always air seal major penetrations in the subfloor, okay? Anything that's a 1/2 inch to a 3/4 inch or larger, get you some one component spray foam as we see right here. This is a one component spray foam rig, which you can get off of our DIY store as well. It comes with a gun, a spray foam applicator, and also the can of spray foam and the cleaner. You can get all that in one little package on our DIY store. Insulate and air seal the foundation walls. Okay, that's very important too. There could be plumbing penetrations in the foundation wall. Seal all the vents. As you can see, this vent is sealed. This is where we put our active ventilation system to draw air out of the crawl space, which I'll get into in a later video. Make sure you air seal and insulate the rim joist, as I mentioned. And then check out Ryan Carson's DIY project YouTube interview that we did with him. I'll put a link to that down below, or you can just type in Ryan Carson Crawl Space Ninja DIY project. It's a great video of him during COVID doing his own crawl space. As a matter of fact, many of these pictures, I think all of these pictures are his. As you can see right there, he air sealed that major penetration in the foundation wall. And also make sure that you check out our Insul Barrier and DIY spray foam kits that we've got on our DIY store. Some other resources that we put together for you all, if you want to take a look, is best insulation methods for crawl spaces. We did this both in blog and YouTube form. If you want to check those out, I highly encourage you to do that. And then our next video is going to be crawl space problem number 4, crawl space mold. And I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe and let us know what you think about this content that we're putting out for you. And again, make sure you check out those first 2 videos that we've done. I'm Michael Church with Crawl Space Ninja. We hope you make it a happy and blessed day, and we'll see you later.